Well, thank you for joining us with another hour of Gate City Chronicles. This is the weekly magazine dedicated to the city of Nashua. I'm Kevin Avard, your host. And today I have a couple of friends here from the Capitol that are joining me, and I want to get you to, you've probably seen their face on this channel, Representative Pete Silva and Representative Carl Seidel. Just want to get you to get to know these people, and maybe on a little more personal basis. We talk about politics a lot, and I want to get to know you folks a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But before we do, Pete, you just changed ranks.
I did. I'm now what's called the Deputy Majority Leader, which essentially, I guess, in the hierarchy, it goes Speaker, Majority Leader, then my position, then the one I used to have, which was the Majority Whip.
Interesting. So there's a big pay increase with that.
Yep. I get more free coffee if I need it.
Exactly.
In the Speaker's office, but you still have to donate to it anyway, so it's not free.
Do you really have to pay for that?
No,
I'm kidding.
we do. We really do. It's not provided
He's got
by
a
the
little
state.
cup.
He's got everything. He counts, the money. He makes sure that we did get a treat today, though. We had a caucus on the redistricting, and he treated everybody to pizza.
Oh, that's
so
fun.
that's about the
Well,
that's
if
the
you
big
got
thing.
there in time. They said it was gone in 10 minutes.
Oh, figured. Yeah, and was Kyle there by any chance? Kyle Tasker?
Oh, yeah, he was.
Yeah, he knows where the food is.
He's the pizza monster. He was standing right next to the empty boxes.
Smiling.
Yeah, he's smiling like, yeah.
I got my 2 pieces.
So basically, you're 2 state representatives here from Nashua, and one of the reasons I wanted you on here is because, not blowing smoke, you guys are kind of my heroes. You've gone before me. I'm a freshman. You're
Second year.
Second year. You've been up the road a little bit, and you know the process a lot better than I do. I'm still feeling my way through it, but it's quite an honor. One of the things that I'm discovering is I'm running a business. I'm running a business. I'm surrendering not all my time, but a lot of time to go to the Capitol. And I just find that there is a personal sacrifice that I want the average people to know what you people are going through here as far as not surrendering, but donating your time to the state. You know, as soon as we talk about politicians, oh, well, they make all this money and this, and you get this clouded image of what you people are all about just because you have those state plates. And I want to get to know you guys just a little better and let the people know what you're really all about. And if you don't mind me starting with you, Pete,
sure.
I know that you work in prosthetics or some
Medical sales for 20 years, and it's I work for a division of Johnson & Johnson called DePuy, and we purchased DePuy, J&J did in 1999, like right around this time of the year, and we sell orthopedic implants, knees, hips, but most of what I'm the director of sales now, most people do, the reps go into surgery. So there's a lot of technical aspect to it. So that's what we do. What I've been able to afford the time to do this, and it's not easy, especially now getting in leadership. I mean, you can see the difference. I do most of my work on the phone. Like, people see me with my ear thing all the time. They make fun of it, but that's how I'm able to do it because most of my reps are seasoned guys, and they don't need babysitting. It's
Right.
more like nighttime things and things like that. But that's one of the reasons why there's a bill coming out of the Senate. I think it was Senator Lambert told us when he was in here.
Oh, yes.
To do kind of like what Perry does in Texas and have, which we were until the 70s. Every other year we met. And,
I remember Ray White, Senator White was
Yeah,
talking
he's one
about
of the co-sponsors,
that.
I believe.
Oh, I think it's, yeah.
I
He
mean,
wants to get it in before you.
it would save the state money. It would,
Our budget is biennial.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh.
so it's 2 years, so you could do it in 1 year.
yeah, and you would probably get rid of a lot more of these frivolous bills, or at least they wouldn't spend as much time on them.
Right.
And I think you'd probably attract, well, put it to you this way. If you want people more like us, Carl's, fortunate to be retired, so he has the time, but if you want to get other mixes of people that are still in the workforce so they see the daily things, you have to accommodate them somehow. And that would be one way to do it. Maybe you could work a deal with your boss that, look, it's only going to be every other year, and, I won't get in leadership. You don't have to be in leadership.
Right.
You could be on a smaller committee, but you could still vote. The difference is we got in leadership, obviously, you get to say more, so you have a little more clout.
Interesting. Well, I noticed in the past, years in the past, you know, you got to looking at the people that served in the House, and, you know, they were either retired people or they were so well off that they didn't need to go to work, and that's not necessarily a fair representation of what, it's not a good way to represent the people of New Hampshire. And this year there seems to be a really good mix of people up there with that are struggling to work and to get their work done, and yet at the same time serve their state because they care.
Well, you saw a revolution in the last election. There are a lot of people that decided they had enough. And it really was a sweep, as you saw in the results and how many people we have in the House and the Senate, supermajorities. It was because people got fed up. And I think we have to keep that up in order to really turn it around and undo some of the things that have happened in the last 4 years.
I totally agree with you. I'm just thinking about certain agencies that they've been around for a while, and I'm just going to throw one out there because they're on my hit list, if you will, and that's DCYF. I sit on the grievance committee, and one of the things we sent them were a number of questions for them to come in and just, hey, talk to us how you go about doing things, and nothing specific, but we just want you to come in and talk about how you go into a home and take a child. And one of the tactics that I've learned as a freshman is if we stall long enough, there'll be an election, and those questions may end up going away. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, that's it. So getting on your point, you know, we got to keep the momentum going.
That's right.
We need some of the same reps to get back in there because they're doing a hell of a job. I think a lot of them, and their souls.
And it is a real sacrifice. I don't know how both you guys hold a job. I know my job before I retired, I couldn't have done that. Even as a consultant, that just took too much time.
Yeah. I'm on food stamps.
Oh, okay.
I'm kidding. I am definitely kidding. Getting there. No.
But yeah, it's tough to work everything in. And as Pete says, sometimes it amounts up. We did a good job, so now he's deputy majority leader. I'm a vice chair on my committee, and I also won the honor of being chair of the county executive board, yes, which is something I never expected, and is taking a bit of time there too, right, because so there's a lot of things that we had to do in the budget last year.
So tell me a little bit about your background, Carl. What did you do in your other life?
I'm a chemist, and I came up through a number of different companies. One company was bought by DuPont, and I've retired from DuPont, and I went to start up a company down in Texas after, that was in '97, and I stayed with them for 3 years, and then left and started a consulting business when my wife was, at that time, detected with ALS. And she passed away in 2005, and I decided, I was up here, I enjoyed New Hampshire, but I saw what was happening with that administration. I decided to run, and I ran, first time lost, but second time was good, and then the third time was even better. Right. But I just couldn't see what was going on up there.
What are some of the biggest things that red flagged you so that made you both run? What are some of the things that was the impetus? I mean, you say those things.
They were spending more money than they were taking in. Basically, they were gimmicking the way they would get money. Right. Whether borrowing money, I mean, this one last 2 years ago when they got the University of New Hampshire to give them $20 million, and then the government took out a bond issue over 10 years to pay that back to the university. Now, that's a little bit of a gimmick. And things like that really upset me.
Yeah. How about you, Pete?
Mine was more, Carl and I both ran in different things. Mine was more social issues. Right. It was really the state of the high school and the school system in general. And my son was a sophomore, and I'll give you the line I even used. And he was dating a girl. They broke up. The girl went back with her old boyfriend, who was a 18-year-old junior. And it was a jealousy thing. No, that's the whole point. So, anyways, I can remember it took place over a series of a couple of months, and my son was very upset because they have a stupid rule. We're in school together and you start hitting me, I'm supposed to run like a coward. If I hit you back and there's witnesses that you started the fight, I go too. So if you play varsity sports and you get bounced, you're off the team. So my son played hockey, varsity hockey and lacrosse, and some of these thugs know that. So on purpose, during tryout times, they pull stunts. So I went to first the principal. Well, I went to the cops first because one of the head coach was a cop. There's nothing they could do to help me. So finally, I went to the principal and I said, so look, all I'm asking for in this is that my kid gets to defend himself. I'm not asking for anything special. Just if this kid starts hitting on him, he gets to hit back. He does it, he goes. So I remember the day that was yesterday, he said to me, Dad, I think today's the day. What should I do? I said, well, what do you want me to tell you? I mean, I don't know how you can just stand there and take a beating, but you got to do what you got to do, and I'll back you. Sure enough, this kid skipped class, came in the cafeteria, so he wasn't trying to hide it. There's cops in the cafeteria. Came up behind my son who's sitting there having lunch and just started pounding on him. So it didn't hurt him really, but they grabbed the kid, arrested him, because he's an adult. It's an assault, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Come to find out, he had missed 57 days of school at that point. So I wanted to put a restraining order on him. They wouldn't give it to me. I had to hire a lawyer. It cost me $1,500 to put a restraining order on this kid. So finally, when I finally get a meeting with Hoddle, who was the superintendent at the time, because Julia Earle was on her sabbatical. And I was so frustrated, I looked at my wife and I said, let's get out of here before I get arrested for assault. And I looked at him and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get into politics. I'm going to get rid of people like you. I'm sick of you liberals. That's a true story. And we left, and it was the next year that I ran. That must have been like 2007, and I ran in 2008.
All right, Pete. Any progress?
Well, in a reverse way, we had the student-teacher bill, if you remember, in the Senate because of various reasons, but it was definitely a freshman mistake that they didn't play the game with the Senate. The reps, I don't know why I didn't go to the hearing. If you remember, it was 375. We passed that in the House the first time on a voice vote. And then they for some reason, put it to another committee. So it went from judiciary. First of all, it came out of judiciary 16-0 or 17-0. It went into the House, voice vote, goes to education now for some reason. They recommitted it. Comes out of there 15-0. Goes back to the House, voice vote. I mean, no one was against this thing. And the day that we passed it in education, Fox News interviewed me. And if you remember, it was at North. The kid took the 3-hole punch and bashed the teacher in the face and broke the bones in the face.
Oh.
That's the same day. And it got into the Senate, and they got into some type of tiff. And so the Senate said, no, forget it. So that's why when you see Gidge, this is a bipartisan thing. Gidge and I were like, buddy in this thing. And we'll get it through. There's another version of it coming up.
Right. You should be able to defend yourself. It's
crazy. What a teacher does now is they see two people fight in a hall, like when you and I were kids, when you were a kid. What would a teacher do? The guy who's getting beat up, they grab the other one, pull him off by the back of his shirt, and get out of here.
Exactly, pretty much.
You do that now, that's assault.
Yeah.
So now the teacher's supposed, you know how big the high schools are.
Sure. Yeah.
The teacher's supposed to run to the nearest phone, call the office to get the cops up there.
Meanwhile, somebody's getting their head smashed in.
With a 3-hole punch.
Incredible.
We had teachers come testify. Got one of the guys from North that is still active. And, the emotional stories that he tells you. And we had the teachers union testify for this. We had AFL-CIO, everybody you could imagine was in favor of this
still
thing.
ran into a problem.
And we ran into a problem, like we were talking about off air. So it wasn't a technicality in the bill this time. It just was simply freshman mistakes of them arguing. I'm not saying you should like water down legislation, but if you go 100% of everything, most times you end up with zero. You got to start small. If you get the bill in, then you're able to, if you have to tweak it next time and make another amendment to it, it's a lot easier to do that than it is to
get everything all at once.
Right. Well, we were talking about that abortion, not the abortion, but when life begins, that bill, and that was a tough one for me because I wanted it to start at conception. That life began at conception, and I'm running around with my head. Hey, listen, I don't like this. I don't like this whole idea of it being at a later time. And Dan Incy comes up to me and says, "Listen, take it, do it now, get this thing in."
Dan said that.
Dan,
well, he's one to talk.
Yeah, well, exactly. But that's what he says. Let's just get this in so that we at least acknowledge that it's a life.
Yeah.
That the child is a life, and I thought that was sage counsel at that point. So one of the things I remember early on, Carl, when we first were elected, that we went to a meeting up at the Walker House. I think it was the Walker House, and it was for the. Was it called the business?
Yeah, there's a business group, subgroup that
Laurie Sanborn.
Laurie Sanborn's in charge of.
What is the official? I'm having a mental block on that.
I am too.
and you're still on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still on that.
Well, I'll think of it as we're talking about. I know what you're saying. She directs it, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's like the business association or business caucus.
Right,
or whatever.
and that's basically designed to brainstorm with both. It's a bipartisan committee.
Right. Yeah.
On how to get businesses back into New Hampshire.
That's right.
And that seems to be one of the rubs for some of the other people getting involved with the politics, and I have a feeling that's part of.
Well, that's part of my campaign, was the business end of it, and how we could make the environment more favorable for new businesses. And I think we see some of those things coming up. There was one I just heard of last week that's moving up from Andover, Massachusetts, up to Salem.
Salem, yeah.
Yeah.
It's 250 jobs or something.
Yeah, and he's expanding because he's getting a much larger facility than he had down in Massachusetts. So, but we're extending the loss carry forward for a new company, which is very important because you generally lose money. You go out and you get millions of dollars of support, and then you spend that while you're growing the company before you really show a profit.
Right.
And you want to be able to recoup, at least not pay taxes on something that will make up for your loss.
Right.
And there are a few other things we're going to be doing with the different, there's a greater initial deduction on the business. Which one of it now? It's one of the BET tax.
Right. We just had an H&R blog gentleman here, Dick from the Pheasant Lane Mall, H&R, and we were talking about the BE tax and how my gosh, this is just a bad idea. The whole idea. If somebody goes out and takes a $300,000 loan to start a business, they're already paying taxes on it.
Yeah.
And so.
But there's an exemption now for a certain amount. I don't remember what it was exactly before the taxes applied.
Right.
So, and then there's other credits we're talking about, a research and development credit against your profit, and making just a general environment. The other thing, I'm on a commission for rules and regulations. We're looking into just the policies that are run by the agencies up there in Concord. And we talked about this earlier, they feel that they're independent, that they don't respond to the legislature. They don't respond to one another.
Right.
One of the things we found out, that Department of Labor has a definition for independent contractor. If a company wants to hire a consultant or something like that, with right now 12 different conditions, and they have to meet every one of those conditions to be called an independent contractor, so that the company doesn't have to pay an employee tax and all the other things that go with that. The other agencies have a 3 condition for independent contractor. Now, how can you deal with a state where the agencies have different definitions for the employees?
Right.
You can't do that. There's a law there's a legislation in now where it's being reduced to 7 from 12 to 7. But why 7 and 3 other agencies have 3 conditions to meet that?
Aren't we like the 4th highest regulated state in the country?
Something like that.
We have more regulations than New York.
Well, one of the other things was the
That's
licensing.
amazing.
We have, what, 90-some licenses for different...
I meant to say licensing, you're right.
Yeah.
Not regulations, licensing.
The licensing. So we got rid of a couple of them where you can still get a license if you want, but you don't have to have a license.
Right.
California only had, what, 39, I think it was, something like that.
And that's amazing for California to have. We're overregulated more than California.
Yeah, I think New York was like 47 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of misinformation's out there. A lot of these industries seem to put or encourage these licensings to protect their industries.
That's right.
And they have nothing to do with the quality of the work that's there. It's just another, well, we can keep out the competition if we require licensing.
Mm-hmm.
And that part of the argument doesn't seem to get out there because of the protesters or
Right.
the media blitz that they put on. Of course, again, you narrow the competition, you can keep your prices up.
Well, that's one thing, but I'm a chemist. I belong to the American Chemical Society. They do have certain certifications that you can get, but the government has nothing to do with that.
Right.
It's a professional agency that does. I went through a very nice career without having to get any kind of license. Mm-hmm. But if you wanted to, like if you wanted to be a consultant, that might have been more effective in getting a job.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, just getting a little bit more back onto the personal. I happened to see you at a basketball game the other day here locally. Just kind of curious, you still have kids in the lower levels of?
Yeah, I have a 12-year-old.
A 12-year-old.
7th grader.
God bless you.
Yeah, I'm 27, 25, 21, and 12.
All right, and they're, wow.
You're very active in other things.
Little gap there.
Yeah, and I saw you, and you looked really tired that day at the basketball game.
That wasn't his fault. We were, was that the night, that was the night after the Patriots game.
Right, okay.
So I was up a little late that night.
Yeah, so was I.
So
I had mixed feelings about that game, by the way. I like Tebow, and yet I'm definitely a Patriots fan, so I just.
those are my kind of games.
Yeah.
I don't like the nail biters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually have my ultimate torture, and I do this every year they've been in the playoffs. I'm going to a national sales meeting in San Antonio on Thursday. Well, I come home Sunday. So I don't know the schedule when I book my flight, right?
Oh.
They weren't even in the play. Well,
Yeah.
they're going to be in the playoffs, but I didn't know when. So I leave San Antonio at 8 in the morning, so you lose time. I got
1
to stop
hour.
in Baltimore.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I get in Baltimore at 2, and then my plane leaves at 5:10, I think it is. So I'm going to get to see,
A couple hours, yeah.
like, maybe through the first half, then get on a plane and not know what's going to happen, unless he gives us scores.
Oh, yeah, sometimes they do that.
He probably will, but then I'll be in the Baltimore airport with my Patriots jacket on with a bunch of drunks. I'm probably going to get a flight.
Yeah.
You know I got to wear my coat to rub it in.
Do you have any children, Carl?
I have 4 grown children all around. One lives in Nashua, actually,
Okay.
in Ward 2.
In War II, so
Yeah.
there's one vote that's...
That's it.
Yeah.
And one is in Washington. She's counsel to the Commerce Committee for Kay Bailey Hutchinson is the minority leader.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
She's been in politics for a while. She was, until Bush left, she was Deputy Assistant Attorney General down there.
Wow.
So, yeah, I've got those two are active. I have my first daughter just adopted a baby, and now she's busy. She's been doing a little consulting work on the side. And another one has married a professor at the University of Massachusetts, so he lives in Billerica.
Billerica, just up the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was my first grandchild, which I'm happy to have.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
How recent was that?
Well, the adoption went through July 31st, actually.
Was that a tough process for her?
Oh, you know, that's another thing that you're leading me back to the politics.
Yeah.
But the rules and regulations of what they can do and what they can't do are terrible. And it takes so long. And she lives in Massachusetts, so we're talking about 2 different states. But New Hampshire couldn't help her out at all because she wasn't living in the state.
Okay.
Massachusetts has a rule that for the first year, you can't leave the state without getting permission from a social worker who oversees your case. And my daughter said, look, I go shopping in Nashua. I do, my father's in Nashua. So they said, all right, we'll give you an exception. But she can't go anyplace. She had to call up the social worker late at night. We just had a funeral in Pittsburgh, and she wanted to go to that funeral. She had to get permission to take the baby with her. I mean, the baby's only 5 months old, so she couldn't leave her with anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculous. And it took her 3 years to go through all the adoption procedures. And then it's a year afterwards before.
Is the baby from here?
From the United States, yeah. You know, baby was blind. In fact, the guy that handled the adoption actually wrote the adoption laws in Indiana. And if we can get those in here, that's one of the next projects I have, is seeing if we can bring some of those laws into New Hampshire. And maybe even get Massachusetts to listen to it.
It seems like whether it's the state or the federal government, we're just so overregulated, so weighed down. And I think people get, over time, it seems like they get used to it until they have to buck the system. And then, wait a minute, has it always been like this?
The thing that's sad, though, is I think that what it also does is because you just get kind of numb to it, then there's things that happen that you do need regulation. I had my first experience. It's kind of ironic that this no-paying job might actually save my profession, never mind my career. But in orthopedics, as I was just telling you, there's like 5 major companies. One of them's mine. You might have heard of Stryker, maybe Zimmer. The other ones you probably wouldn't have heard of. But they found a loophole in the Obamacare plan that a physician now can buy, basically he can sell the implants back to the
distributor.
hospital. Yeah, be his own distributor. The acronym is PODS. So what happened was my boss's boss said to me at a sales meeting, because they all call me the congressman, that's like a joke, can you do anything? And I said,
maybe next time around.
yeah, and I don't think so. This is as high as I want to go. And I said, well, I mean, I know Kelly I could try doing that. So it was really kind of cool, actually. I got to go down to Washington and actually go see a sitting senator. But not only that, just like at the end, I actually told her mother that today, because her mother, I don't know if you know, she's a lobbyist for, I think it's the Public Utilities Commission. Yeah, they're all, so she's in my committee all the time. But I just shared with her when we were done, you know, everything was professional. We're done, you know, Kelly and I like embraced it, and I just said to her, can you believe this? And because we're in this thing called the Gold Room, which is really cool. It's kind of like their ante room of the Senate.
Right.
That's where they do all their business. There's a conference table there, and she just looks at me and says, you know, I still got to pinch myself. It was really like one of my best days of my life, actually. It was just really cool, like going to Washington.
Right.
But my point is, she said to me in the meeting, what are you doing to help New Hampshire? And I said, you know what, I never thought of that. So I came back, talked to the speaker. It's good to know people. And we went through rules, and the bill doesn't even have a name yet, but it is coming up this session. We just had a meeting last Tuesday to try to do it. But essentially, what these physicians will be able to do, and they're doing it now in all other parts of the country, a lot of them anyways, the closest to us that I know is Connecticut. The largest orthopedic hospital in Connecticut switched to PODS in January, using an implant they've never used before. And now they switched 100%. It's not like you sign on 100%. And there's cases, this guy that I work with, the consultant, in some cases they're making 2 to 3 times off the implant what they make as reimbursement from the insurance company or Medicare. So just think about how their decision might be swayed as to what they put in you.
Right.
So there's a case where you need regulation.
Yeah.
There's a case where in order to do it right, you're going to need big government, whether it's state government or these hospitals are not going to be able to fight them. So it's a shame that when you have all this frivolous stuff and all this greedy stuff, that when there's really, and the reason why it got to Senator Ayotte is her mother has 2 knees in her. Her aunt behind her has a hip in her. She has experience, and I said to her, can you imagine? They went to Boston to do it. But, so they even went and picked their surgeon. Imagine if they knew that they're going to go see a guy that's going to use an implant from Korea.
Yeah.
Or an implant from South America.
Made in China.
You can't, I mean, you can't make these things up. And when I was even saying it to her, not that she didn't believe me, but it's just hard to believe that it could happen. So that's why it bothers me that you get, politicians get a bad name, politics get a bad name, but you do need some of it.
Yeah, there definitely has to be some oversight. But one of the real purposes for this show with you gentlemen on is, I think for the sacrifice that you guys put in, you need a pat on the back. And I'm not trying to blow smoke here. It's just, I see what you're doing. You're going up there and you're advocating for the people of New Hampshire, and you just don't need any bad press. You see it out there, and you see some of the articles, and you want to just kind of slap somebody over the head and say, wait a minute, you got to come up here and see what these guys are doing, So, and again, Speaker O'Brien, I just want to give him a plug real quick, but I want to thank him for that grievance committee that he's put out there. You have dealt with the grievances for a while now. You've been on that at least last year.
Yeah, I was on it the first year before it was a formal committee.
Right.
And listened to a number of those things. I couldn't believe what they were telling me. And, listen to one side of the story, you never get to hear the other side.
Yeah, that's the
but
thing.
they don't even come and bother to tell you why they did what they did.
Right.
And there was some evidence there of real criminal activity, where forging signatures and giving, a decree where you had, you couldn't win. You lost whether you did it or you didn't do it.
Right.
Either way.
And people, you wonder if am I really crazy? Am I really mad? Or am I just being abused by the system? And you're up there to try to correct that. And I think this grievance committee really, when people understand what it really is all about, it's basically about a group of us sitting and listening to the handiwork of the House of Representatives here in New Hampshire, what we passed in the past, and seeing the damage that has happened on some legislations or the abuses that have happened through our court systems. When people understand that there's a committee that, oh, wait a minute, maybe they'll listen to me.
Yeah,
You know?
And it's just like Pete said in his example before, it's hurting the children.
Right.
And that's what really bothers me a lot. These are poor innocent kids that have nowhere to go, and that one of their parents is taken away from them.
Right.
And it's really a shame what's going on.
Well, in one of my cases, they had grandparents willing to take the kids, and they wouldn't even let them do that. So that's even worse. These kids, they don't even know where they are. So it's
breathtaking, and it really is breathtaking when you just point that out. Years ago, I ran up in the Concord area for, I ran for Senate. I ran against Sylvia Larson. I got soundly defeated, but that was one of the reasons I went in, was because of the abuses of DCYF and the power they have, which is unaccountable. It's breathtaking. They're like the IRS.
In a way, that's true. And you see that on the federal level, too, that there's a lot of things that what's happening now is there's no review process.
Right.
Nobody's held accountable. One of the things that I heard when I first I listened in on a audit. I wanted to find out what the audit process is. As you know, they have auditing of all the agencies. But I listened to an HHS audit, Health and Human Services, and they gave a list of things that they recommend for better management. And the chair, not the chair, the assistant commissioner said, we don't have time to pay attention to that. You didn't give us enough money, so we can't get around to that. And they wouldn't look at it at all. And that was the committee allowed it to go through.
That's one thing you're going to see here too a lot is, I'm not for giving them any more money, but one of the problems we have is if you did get to see the DCOF people for the most part that were the caseworkers, they're not exactly rocket scientists, because what happens, we train them here, and they go across the border to Massachusetts and make twice the money. So they can't keep good help, and there's no tenure. Once they get, unless they're in high-level positions, the regular caseworkers, they just cycle through them because they go to the bordering states and essentially double their pay.
Well, that's interesting. My heart's not really going out to them.
No, it's not. But I'm just saying. So the point of that story is, that's why a lot of these decisions may be, fouled up, because you don't exactly have someone that's maybe has life's experience that should be doing that job.
Right. Well, I think auditing them, or at least holding them accountable, and maybe coming up with some legislation to make that happen, so that the people have recourse. Right now, if DCY comes to your house, what lawyer, what can you do?
Nothing.
There's nothing you can do.
And that's amazing.
Yeah.
You can't even run across the border. If they're onto you for something, or they think, or there's a hearsay. So this is why I got involved, because we need to counter that. We need to say, wait a minute, you're an agency of the government. That's wonderful. We're here to protect the children. That's wonderful. But in the process, you're hurting people, and that has to stop. And you have to abide by the laws, and the courts have to come into play with that as well. Again, that's one of the reasons I've got.
Well, that's one of the management things that they don't have up there. A management review. There are some very good agencies. I happen to work with the Department of Transportation. We're pretty happy with them, but other ones that just don't review the activities of all the agencies that they have, either working for them or having their own employees implement some of the laws. There's no real evaluation of their performance.
I'm curious about one thing. I had a constituent say something to the effect that he actually pans for gold in the state. And certain rules have changed to where you can't use a shovel anymore to pan for gold, because it just, for years he was panning for gold.
Riverbeds get screwed up.
Right, something to that effect. And it's been a pastime of his for years. I mean, he doesn't get a lot. He just gets a little, but the fact, it's his pastime. He likes going out there. And, excuse me, but a committee came up with a rule that says, hey, you can't do that anymore. Now, I'm thinking about that whole process. Can these departments make rules that are equivalent to law without going to the legislature?
Well, they're supposed to go through GELCAR, which is a committee that reviews all the rules that they can make. I mean, the laws usually leave some some ability for the agency to make rules to implement the law. But they're supposed to go through GELCAR, which is a joint commission from both House and Senate.
Oh, okay.
But there are some rules that really have to be changed.
Sneak under the wire?
Well, I guess you don't see the actual implementation, which is really what causes the problem, because they can, you read something and it says, well, that's all right, but there's no, that they can use some judgment in there, which they don't talk about.
Right.
And that's what the problem is. Interesting.
And our court, excuse me, our courts seem to be doing the same thing. With Article 73A, there's a place where the last article of that says that all promulgated law shall become, or rules shall become as law, making the courts a lawmaking department.
Right. And that's something I know a number of our members are working on.
Right.
Because you can't have any agency independent of the others completely.
Right. So
there has to be a review process, and somebody has to evaluate them.
So some bright pictures here for the state. I know we can always talk about the problems. What's good happening pretty soon? Anything?
You mean like bills or just in general?
Bills, optimism, anything? Are we?
Well, I'm looking forward to this election coming up where we put a Republican in as a governor, and then we have a little bit more things that we can do.
Now, we have two candidates for governor right now. There's Ovid LaMontagne, and then I believe Kevin Smith.
Right.
Right, yeah.
And Ted Gatzis will probably announce in the next month or so, I bet.
So are we going to have a floodgate of like in the presidential?
I don't know. I don't think there's any more than those three that want to tangle with those three. They all have a different constituency.
Right. Interesting. Any bets?
I don't see how they can catch Ovid. I mean, he's like Romney. He's been campaigning off and on for 6 years.
Right.
I know almost everything I've ever had at my house. He's been there.
Yeah. We've both supported him.
We came out early for him. I mean, I really thought the way he handled his loss to Kelly Ayotte was very honorable. And I told him right after that, you know, I can't support you now. I gave Kelly my word, but I used to joke with him on the radio show, when you run for governor, I'll be your first supporter.
That's right. You got a radio show. I forgot about that.
Not for long.
Well, we have the People's View now.
Yes.
And Ovid will be on there probably next month.
He'll probably be, we'll have to stop him from coming on probably. He'll be on every day.
Hey, if you don't mind, I'd like to give a little plug to our new show that we're going to be actually running from the Capitol. This is the weekly magazine for Nashua. It's called Gate City Chronicles, as you know. But we'll be having another one called From the Capitol, which I hope you two would, you know.
Where are you going to do that?
Right from the LOB building.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's. We'd love to have you come on. John Burt will be co-hosting that with me, and that way we can talk about, you know, more current issues and stuff that's pending right away.
Well, I think that's good. I mean, that's one of the reasons we're doing our show, is that we want to get these issues out there so the people have a better understanding of what's going on up there and why some of these things are being done, because I believe the papers don't always represent us in the best light.
Yeah.
I mean, they sort of say we're, you know, bullying people and taking, you know, there's things that are reported that I haven't seen happen.
Right. I know personally, walking up there at the Capitol and talking with a lot of the state reps, these people care, you know, and they don't want to hurt anybody. They're actually out there vehemently fighting for your rights, fighting for the New Hampshire people's rights, and they need credit for that. And the press should speak the
Well, it
truth.
depends what side you're on. The other side gets all the credit.
Yeah.
Today was my last day of receiving. I've had it since I've lived in Nashua, and I had an incident with the Telegraph during the Perry campaign, and I called them, screamed at them, tried to get them on the radio show. They wouldn't, but I already paid for it, so I canceled my subscription, but it didn't run out till today, and I'll start getting the Union Leader tomorrow every day instead. They're about as fair as you're going to get.
Right.
The Telegraph just is one-sided. And Kevin Lanigan's been very fair to me, and I told him that what I was going to do, and it has nothing to do with him, because I treat people, they treat me.
Right.
But the rest of them, that
Yeah,
McKinnon guy, he should be gone.
What about the Nashua patch? Have you guys heard about that?
She's been fair to me.
Yeah. Was it Carol?
Yep.
Yeah.
And Carol, and I never knew that, but they're run by the Huffington Post.
Oh, really?
And you can't get more liberal than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's been extremely fair.
Yeah. She did a nice article recently on the voter ID.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've said anything that could have been bad anyway, but the point is, I mean, she didn't twist anything. She just put in what I said.
I think that's what most of us are looking for. You know, if you're going to report the news, don't put it in such a, like, where there's such a dark cloud just because you're a Republican or you're conservative. Just put the facts, man.
That's it. That's what the journalist does. They put the facts out
They
there.
did.
The editorial page is where you have your opinions.
Right, right. And,
Well, I said as an example, we all are old enough to remember Walter Cronkite.
Yep.
I never knew till just about when he was dead that he was this wicked liberal.
Oh, yeah.
He just reported the news. How'd you ever know?
Right.
You know, that's how it should be.
And then came Sam Donaldson.
Dan Rather.
And Dan Rather, and yeah.
So you do have a, but you know, you're going back to what you said in the beginning. I think there is a love for this work that you have to have.
Right.
Oh, you wouldn't do it for $100 a year.
Right.
Well, how many people know that? You know, I bet you half the people that vote for us don't know how much we get, or you know.
Exactly, and when they say those crooked politicians, I take great offense to that.
Yeah.
You know, because I do love the state, I do love my country, and I didn't serve in the military like a lot of the guys did. My son did, but this is my service to my country, and I'm doing it the best I can. You know, it is like drinking out of a fire hose, though, when you first get in there.
It still is. It doesn't let up too
Right.
much.
Yeah, I'm serving with a lot of really honorable freshmen, though. They're my heroes. They do their homework. They do a lot of research, and they're filling in the gaps where I lack. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Is there
Thank
any
you for
closing
having us.
thoughts that you might want to leave with your constituents here in Nashua? Or?
I just think, you've been giving us accolades and some to you. I mean, that's what takes more people. I know Carl and I don't even know Carl, maybe 15 people at the city committee when we first started, beating around it.
Oh, yeah.
And our goal has always been to get more people, more suckers
Yeah.
to come in.
Yeah, hey, this is fun.
Yeah.
Well, look how many new people we put in
Look at it.
Nashua here
Right.
that are all active. I mean, there were people that, well, we had to twist their arms maybe to run, and they didn't know how to campaign or anything like that. But now that they're in, they have the same kind of fire you have, which we're very, very happy with.
Well, when Carl and I got in, there was five Republicans. 4 of them were freshmen.
Right.
The only
No, excuse me, two were non-freshmen. Pam and Dee.
I'm sorry, D. That's right.
Dee Hogan.
And then last time, Pam didn't run again. So we had 28, as you know, this time. So you just had D, other than us that were now sophomores.
And McCarthy.
That's-
Mike McCarthy was the other one.
But listen, the sophomores would be, so it was McCarthy, Carl, myself, and who am I
Dee.
forgetting?
Dee.
D and Pam, that's the 5, that's
Yeah.
right. So we'll go from 5 to 22.
And it's amazing. It's so far it's been a good run. You know, it's been, and I think we're working on getting a lot of things accomplished. And I hope we have a better run next time. I'm looking forward to it.
I think we will.
Yeah.
We'll be fine.
Yeah. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right.
Thank you, Kevin.
Carol. And thank you for joining us here at Gate City Chronicle for another interesting hour. We want to thank our sponsors, Nashua Steam Cleaning, Aardvark Cleaning. If you need your carpets cleaned, they're a wonderful carpet cleaning company.
Okay.
Because that's me.
If I do say so myself.
If I do say so myself. Anyway, there's the meeting. Thank you very much, and have a great week.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Well.